My name is Anna Gallion. I'm here with Jessica Brownfield. We are from the Information Services and Research Library Group. We're talking today about PTS going away and being replaced with a new publications module in Resolution. So I don't know how many of you use Resolution, but it's kind of a one-stop shop for researchers to access all kinds of information at the lab. And up until now, your use of Resolution has been somewhat optional, but once this publications module replaces PTS, there's going to be a lot of people using Resolution for the first time. So we want to talk a little bit about what's going to change, what's going to stay the same to prepare everybody for the change. So what changed? All of the requirements are the same. All the DOE and ORNL requirements for publications are the same. So if you were required to provide an accepted manuscript before, you're going to be required to provide the accepted manuscript in the future. Same thing with copyright transfer agreements. We're still following the DOE Order 241.1b. We're still sending all our STI over to OSTI. We're still attributing things to our sponsors, providing our review and release services. We're still following the DOE Public Access Plan to make accepted manuscripts available to OSTI. We're still following all of our export control and information classification guidelines, as well as all our legal stuff. So everything you did before, you're going to still do, but you have a better interface now for doing it. So how is it going to be different in Resolution? For one thing, you'll have a new updated user interface, which is much more modern and not in SharePoint. So yay for that. You're going to be able to clearly see where a publication is in the workflow. So in PTS, it was just one big, long information thing to fill out. Now it's much more modular, step by step, and you'll be able to look at the top of the screen anytime and see where you are in the process. There's also a lot of in-app tooltips and guidance. So if you have questions about things like what is an accepted manuscript or what does this OUO information category mean, you'll be able to click right there in the app and get answers to your questions. And the other thing we're offering is dashboards to show you clear metrics for researcher performance and organization performance. So anybody will be able to look at any dashboard for anybody at the lab. The only things that are going to show on that dashboard are things that are marked published. So if you've got a draft in progress, you want to keep it secret, you don't want people to know what you're writing about, you don't have to worry because it's locked down until you mark it published. Okay, the other big way in which Resolution is going to be different is we're going to have some increased security. In PTS, you were not allowed to upload an OUO document, but in Resolution, you'll be able to upload the file, and every document that gets uploaded is going to be encrypted for security. In addition to that, we're going to lock things down based on status of employee. So if you're a foreign national without legal permanent residency, you'll not be able to view OUO documents. So this might affect you if you're publishing something and you select a foreign national technical reviewer, but you chose an OUO category. You'll just be asked to choose a different technical reviewer. And we realize this is a really conservative approach, but we're just trying to cover all of our bases security-wise. So every publication will be encrypted. The people with access to the publication will be scanned based on their foreign national status, and we're also scanning documents for sensitive keywords. So information classification provided a list of keywords, export control provided a list of keywords, and we're scanning every document against those keywords. So you might think you don't need an export control review, but if we determine that you do, that review will be placed in your workflow. And then we offer tools on the back end for all the export control and classification people to help expedite their review process. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is all the stakeholders that we've had involved in this process. So some of you may have come to the demo that we had several months ago that was open to the lab. We got a lot of input on that. We've also had an internal oversight audit in which about 50 staff or more were interviewed, so we got the benefit of all of their feedback. We've spoken to numerous division directors, ALDs, quality people, IT people, Office of Institutional Planning, export control, information classification. We've done usability tests in all of the S&T directorates, so chances are everybody here knows somebody that has talked to us at some point. So it's kind of like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, like you know somebody that's talked to me. So just want everybody to know that we took into consideration a lot of the input we received. The usability tests are all completed. We had a really fantastic response. So we're scheduled to release July 10th. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information here for who to contact after this session if you have questions. You can contact pubsupport@ornl.gov. That'll go to me and to Jessica. And if you have questions about copyright transfer agreements, you can contact pubcta@ornl.gov. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica. She's going to walk through some of the most common things that you'll do in the system, like creating a publication, performing a technical review, finalizing a publication, and an overview of the dashboards. All of this information will also be available on some videos that'll come out later. So if you get back to your office when the system comes out, you don't remember how to add a publication, you'll just go to the video and that'll tell you how. So I'm going to let Jessica take over here.
So right now we're on the resolution main page. When you want to go to the Publications app, you'll simply go to the green sidebar on the left side of the page and click on Publications. This will take you directly to your personal dashboard. You can see there's a lot of information on this page, which we will look at in more detail at the end. But first we're going to look at adding a new publication. So when you want to add a new work, you'll simply go to the top left corner. You have a box that says In Progress, and you'll click on the Submit New button. On this pop-up window, you'll be asked to select the publication type that you're adding. Now if we click on the different publication types, we can notice that the system gives us tips and reminders on what steps we'll need to perform for that specific communication type. For this example, we're going to be adding a journal article. Now those of you familiar with PTS already, you'll notice that this is a pretty drastic difference. In PTS, when you were adding a new publication, you had one big long page where you were asked to input all of your information at one time. But in resolution, each step is its own page. All of the information that you put in is divided into separate pages. At any point through this process, you can save, walk away from it, come back, and pick up right where you left off. So, on this first page, we'll put in that our article has not been published, and then we'll just put in the publication details. We'll search for the journal to find it, and if it doesn't show up in this list, you have an Add Journal option over here. The abstract is still optional. You can copy-paste that in this box. And down here we have an optional space to add any notes that you want your reviewers to see. So I'm going to put in this box that it was reviewed beforehand by DC Bob Smith. And just save and continue. On the next page, we'll be asked to select the information category to describe the sensitivity of the information in our document. Now at the top of this page, we have this little tab that says Guide Me. If we click on that, that gives us a pop-up window with some general information about what the information categories are at ORNL and how to pick one. If we scroll down, we have some specific guidance for OUO documents and how to know if your document might contain OUO information. We also have links to the SBMS guidelines for information categories. Further down, we have some guidance. If you're working in a classified subject area, you're reminded to hand your document to a derivative classifier before you put it into the system. And finally, there are some special notes for if you're working on an ORNL report. You might have a sponsor-controlled work or something similar, so there's a notice down here on how to handle that situation for ORNL reports. Now we'll just click out of that. Since we're putting in a journal article, it's going to be unclassified and non-sensitive. So I'm going to click on that to select it. If I go over here where it says View Required Copyright and click on this little icon, that gives us the notice of copyright, which we can copy and paste onto the front page of the manuscript. If we scroll down, you can also see the other information categories. So we have the OUO categories up here, and down at the bottom is the classified selection. Now, just like PTS, the policy hasn't changed. This is still an unclassified system, so no classified documents should be uploaded into publications. However, you would still create a record with an unclassified title in the system. If you click on the little I, it gives you a reminder that classified information doesn't go into the system. Up here, anytime you click on these little I's, you're going to get a helpful tip for that specific document type. So we have definitions of each of the unclassified OUO categories. And you can select all of these that apply. More than one OUO category may apply to a report, so you can select all that apply. But once you have your category selected, we're going to save and continue. On the next page, we will add the authors for our document. But first, we have this section called Publication Contact. This is the person that's going to move the document through the review process. You are selected by default, but if I want to change who the contact is, I can just click on that and search for a new person. The lead author on this work is an ORNL staff, so I'm going to put that it's being prepared by someone inside ORNL. And since I'm an author, I'm just going to use this shortcut button to add myself to the authors list. Okay. Now down here, I can add additional authors by clicking on the tab and searching for an ORNL staff by name. Just click to add them. You can also use this window to search for non-ORNL authors. If an author was previously entered into the publication tracking system, they will show up here when you search for them. So I'm going to add a couple of external authors that were previously entered into PTS. If you need to add someone new that doesn't show up on this list, you have that option, Add New Person, right here. Once you've completed your authors list, you'll click out of that. And now you're asked to indicate who the corresponding author is. This is important for journal articles because at ORNL, if the corresponding author is an ORNL staff person, then the CTA or copyright transfer agreement should be signed by our CTA representative. So I am the corresponding author in this case, so I'm going to indicate that with a check. And now down here, we have a section called ORNL Acknowledgements. This is a section you can use to acknowledge persons at ORNL who assisted with the work in some way but are not in the co-authors list. So persons that you acknowledge down here will get credit. Persons that you acknowledge will get credit. That will show up on their dashboard. You'll be able to see publications by other authors that you were acknowledged in. Okay, so once you've completed that step, we'll move on. The next page is funding and facilities. Now, one difference from PTS that I want to point out, in PTS, a charge code was required. However, in resolution, a charge code is now optional, but the program is a required field. You can select not applicable for that field. If we scroll down, we're asked to select any user facilities or research centers that were used for the work. You can, again, select not applicable. You can also select more than one if more than one was used. And if we click on the little I next to the facility name, that gives us the acknowledgement statement that we need to put in our document. So we can just copy paste that into the work. Now, when we go to upload a publication, we get a pop-up window reminding us that if you're working in a classified subject area, you need to hand your document to a DC reviewer before you put it into the system. And if you scroll down, you have a list of DC reviewers with the subject areas that they can review for. So we'll click OK to acknowledge that. And now we can upload our document into the app. So we have two ways to upload. We can upload from computer, or you can drag and drop a file. When you upload, you'll see this little green bar that says it is encrypting the file. Even though my document is unclassified, unlimited, anything that goes into this system is automatically going to be encrypted. So once it's uploaded, you can actually see it here in the app. So we can scroll through this document. You have several options up here. You can download the document back to your computer. You can use this little window to search for keywords. You can search your document that way. You can, over here in the green window, replace your document, or you can remove the document entirely without replacing it. So once you've completed that step, we'll move on. The next page is reviewers, but before we look at that, I do want to point out that if you decide you want to go back to a previous step at any point, you can do that just by clicking on the tab. And make changes. Back on the Reviewers tab, this is where we'll set up our review workflow. So optionally, you can select a date that you need the review completed by, which will notify your reviewers that you've asked for an expedited review date. Or you can leave that blank. The review workflow is customized by organization, so some organizations may require 2 technical reviewers for all papers, or they may require export control review for all papers from their group. If a review is required for your organization, it will show up here in this workflow by default, and you won't be able to remove it. So you'll know what's required for your group. If you feel that you need to add a classification or export control review because your document might contain sensitive subject matter, you can do that up here. You can also add an additional technical reviewer or a technical editor or an administrative check up here. Now I have added an optional technical editor, but if I decide that I don't want that review after all, since it's optional, I can just use the trash can icon to delete it. But you'll notice the ones that are not optional, I can't delete those. So to add a reviewer, just click next to the picture and search for them by name. When you go to add a division approver, it'll show you a list of approvers for your organization to choose from. Okay. And once everything looks good, we'll move on to the next page. Okay. Now we have a reminder of the classification requirements, and I'm going to acknowledge that my document does not contain these information from these subject areas. I'm just going to acknowledge. I could add classification review if I needed to. Okay. The same for export control review. I acknowledge that my document does not contain these types of information. And finally, for the author certification, I can perform this step myself, or I can defer the certification to another ORNL author on my paper, but I'm going to perform it myself. Go down here to certify. So that completes the certification, and now if we scroll down, we have a summary of all the information that we just put into the system. So we have the publication details, the authors list, acknowledgments, programs, reviewers. If you see something down here that isn't quite right or that needs to be edited, you can just go to the tab and edit it and save and come back to this page. But if everything looks good, we're going to go ahead and submit to our reviewers. Now that we've submitted the publication for review, the system takes us back to our dashboard. So now we can see over here in the In Progress box, the document that we just submitted has been added to our In Review publications list. Okay. The next thing that we'll look at here is how to perform a technical review for another author. So in the top left, I have a box labeled To Do. These are things that are waiting for my attention, and I see that I have a technical review request, so I'm just going to click on that to get started. This takes us to a preview window of the document that the review has been requested for. We have the title up here. Down here we can see who the contact person is for that publication. Anytime you see this black ribbon icon in resolution, that means that something is waiting for your attention. You have something to do. So we'll just click on the title. And now we can see the document right here in the app. Over here we have a summary of what has been requested. So we have guidance on how to review scientific communications at ORNL. We also have the criteria for a technical review, which is the specific task that we have been asked to do. And we have the number of days that it has been waiting for technical review. So in this case, it's been waiting for review for 1 day, so that's not bad. And at the bottom, we're asked to decline or accept the review request before we get started. Now, if I'm planning to go on vacation for the next 2 weeks and I know that I'm not going to get to this in a timely manner, I can just decline, and that lets the author know that they need to select a new person for this review. But I'm going to accept. Okay. Now, when we go to perform the view, we have several options over here. We can download the document. We can upload a new document with our revisions. We can view and leave comments. And we can also request additional information from the author for review. Now, if you want to view a comment, to leave a comment, we can leave this comment to the author. You'll notice that it is emailing the author right now. I did not approve or reject this document yet. I have simply left a comment for the author, and they now have a chance to address that comment, and I can still approve this document at a later time, so it does not interrupt the workflow to leave a comment. The same is true if you want to request information for review. If you need additional information, that's going to send the author an email that you need something, and you don't have to reject or approve the document while you wait for that. If you want to upload a document with your revisions, you can do that here. Now you'll notice again, even the revised version that I'm uploading is being encrypted. And since I used track changes in Microsoft Word, those tracked changes actually show up right here in the app when I have a preview of my document. So I can see my comments. If we go up to the top, I can toggle between viewing my revised version and the author's original version. So they're both here side by side. We can also go over here to the Details tab and view the publication details that were submitted by the author originally. Okay. So once all the changes have been made and I'm satisfied with everything looks good, I'm going to go down here and approve the document. So that takes care of all of my tasks for the technical review. On this page, now if we look at the bottom left corner, I can find my mouse, okay. We now have a button that says Past Reviews. So if we click on the Past Reviews, that takes us to our recently completed technical reviews that we have performed. So the document that we just reviewed is actually going to show up in this list. It's right down here. So that's performing a technical review. We'll go back to the dashboard. Okay. The next thing we're going to look at is finalizing a published journal article that's completed review and it's been published by the journal. So over on the In Progress box, I have one document that is awaiting publication. So I'm going to click on that. Again, you have the preview window of the document. Just click on that to get started. So it was published, it was not withdrawn, so I'm going to indicate that. Here we'll enter the final publication details like the journal name, the publication date, the volume, and year. Now if I had a registered DOI from the journal, I could actually copy and paste that in here. And all of these journal details down here would be auto-populated for me. But since I don't have a registered DOI, I can also enter them manually. On the next page, we will upload the published document. Oh, actually there's one thing I meant to point out on the previous page. Down at the bottom, we are also asked to indicate whether our publication is open access or not. My publication is open access, so I'm going to check this box. And what that means for me is because open access papers are already in the public domain, I won't need an accepted manuscript for this publication. If my publication was not open access, I would need to upload the accepted manuscript. On the next page, we will upload the published version, which again is being encrypted. scroll through and see that here. We will also address the copyright transfer agreement. You have three options for this. You can either upload the file from your computer if you have one. You can indicate that you are authorized by the CTA representative to accept the CTA online, or you can indicate that the corresponding author was external and therefore the CTA was completed outside of ORNL. In this case, I was authorized to accept it online. So now on the last tab, we are given a chance to review all the information that we just put in. And if everything looks good, we can submit to the releasing official for the final check, which takes care of our part of the process. So now the document has been moved to awaiting final check. Okay. I'm going to go back to the researcher profile. So now in the in progress bar, instead of awaiting publication, it's been moved into the final check queue. So the last thing that we'll look at is researcher dashboards and organizational dashboards. Okay. Now since I'm not a researcher, I'm going to look up a researcher who has more publications to show. Okay. We'll just search for them by name, badge number, or ID and click on them to go to the dashboard. Now we have a lot of information on this page, but one thing I do want to point out is that if that researcher has documents that are in draft or in review, you won't be able to see those documents until they are completely published and have been completed in the publication system. So you won't be able to see things for other researchers that are in progress. But you can see up in the top center box, a summary of activities since either 2005 or since the researcher joined the lab, whichever is more recent. So the total publications, the total number of technical reviews that that person has performed for other persons, the total number of co-authored documents, and the number of publications by other authors that have acknowledged you in that work. So you can toggle between viewing the dashboard by fiscal year or by calendar year. You have a summary at the top right, again, of your fiscal year activities, so your fiscal year publications, acknowledged documents, and technical reviews that you've completed. If we scroll down, you have a comparison of the current fiscal year with the previous fiscal year, so you can see your progress in relation to your progress from the previous year. In the middle of the page, you have a breakdown of your publications by publication type with a comparison for the current year and the previous year. You can see the facilities and research centers that you commonly worked with. You can see your top co-authors over here on the left, and you can also see your top co-author networks. So like ORNL is probably going to be in this list, but also if you publish a lot with UT or the University of Georgia, that'll show up over here. At the very top, you can toggle between the dashboard and a list of the published and completed documents that that author has completed. You can also view the documents where that researcher has been acknowledged by another author. And if you want to view an organizational dashboard, you'll go to the dashboard search and select Organization Dashboard. Select a directorate from the drop menu. We are going to view the Energy and Environmental Sciences dashboard. So again, you have some similar information on this page. You can see the fiscal year publication output by publication type. You can see your potential publications for the current year. So you can see the documents that have been completed for your organization this year. You also see the documents that are in progress or awaiting publication for your organization. So this total up here is if all of these are completed by the end of the fiscal year. That's how many publications you'll have. These are the publications that have already been completed, the documents where your authors have been acknowledged, and the number of technical reviews that your group has performed. We also have a listing of recent publications by your group. And again, you can toggle between the fiscal year view and the calendar year view. Up here where we have the breakdown by publication type for the fiscal year, I'm going to click on the little Details tab. This further breaks it down by organization, by sub-organization, and we have a comparison of the current fiscal year with the previous fiscal year for each publication type, broken down by organization. Okay. I'm going to go back to that main dashboard. When I search for more dashboards, we are looking at the dashboard for an entire directorate, but you'll notice you can also view dashboards by division or by group. Anytime that you want to go back to your personal dashboard, up here at the top you'll see a little picture icon and you can click on that. That's going to take you right back to your personal dashboard. Right next to that is a little flowchart icon, and if you click on that, it will take you to your group's dashboard, your organizational dashboard. So those are the shortcuts. Now the last thing I want to show is if you want to add a delegate to be able to add publications on your behalf, you'll click on the Publications menu up in the top right corner. You'll notice you could get to your dashboard from here, you could see your publications from here, but if we scroll down, you have an option to manage delegates, so we'll click on that. Now on this page, I already have 3 delegates, so all 3 of these people can add publications on my behalf. If I want to remove a delegate, I can simply click on the X. To add a delegate, you'll simply click on Add Delegate and search for the ORNL staff person. And when you add a delegate, you have the option of adding them as a delegate indefinitely, or you can select an ending date for that delegation period. So then you'll just finalize and save. Okay. So that's adding a delegate, and that's everything I had to show you for this demo. Again, if you have questions, you can contact pubsupport@ornl.gov or pubcta@ornl.gov, but we will also take questions here today if you have any.